What is going on YouTube? In today's episode of Rad Dad Life, we're going to be going over my bike selection. I have gone through a vast majority of bikes in the last 4 years. I started mountain biking about 4 years ago, right before COVID happened. I started off with I may have a picture, I'll put it up on the screen. It's a Scott Aspect. It was about like $300, hydraulic brakes, hardtail, 3x drivetrain. It was a great bike. It's what got me into mountain biking, and I didn't know any different back then, so I thought I had, the treasure. I made it in life. I have this sweet bike that I can go ride around with. I didn't know any better, and I had a great time with that bike. I learned the ropes at Sycamore, my local trails. I had fun being outdoors and exploring and having that adventure-seeking thrill that I was really yearning for. So that opened my eyes to mountain biking. I didn't even know it existed prior to that. So yeah, I was, 29, 28. Before I even knew mountain biking was a real sport or even anything. Like a very foolish person, I went mountain biking one day with the Scott Aspect. I left it in my truck. It got stolen pretty damn quick. It happened to be a great thing because then I looked for another bike. And then the next bike was, I knew I wanted a full suspension bike. I knew that mountain biking was for me. I knew I loved the sport. I'm in it. I'm 100% into the sport. Like I'm never not gonna ride bikes unless I'm broken. I still ride bikes. So I knew I was gonna get a full suspension bike. My Scott Aspect was 29 all around, and I did do a couple drops, obviously not very big because I was a beginner, and my butt still touched the rear tire, and so I started researching tires, and I found out that there was 27.5 and 29. There was a huge debate about the things, but for a shorter person like myself, short but huge, 27.5 is the way to go, for me at least. That's what I like. I mean, if I was racing, I'd go full 29er because obviously that one picks up speed faster and is just overall better at rolling over things, but for me, 27.5 was just a little more playful in what I was looking for. So I got the Hawk Hill 3, which is now considered the Rift Zone 3. They got lawsuits, so they changed the name by Marin. It was about $2,700. It was full suspension bike. It was Shimano SLX front and rear, Marzuko Bomber in the front, and a Fox DPS in the rear. I think that was a 140, 130. It was a fantastic bike. Excuse me, their claim to fame was fun, jibby, having fun, popping everything, and it was great. Like, that was my first all suspension bike I ever ridden on, and I loved the thing. It was fun. It was a really close reach. All my bikes, by the way, have been size small. I do like the more poppy feeling, the closer reach. I like everything to be closer in my cockpit. Everything likes to be right about here. I don't like to be overstretched because I enjoy on climbs I can put my forearms on there and climb, or just in general, having my body close to the bars. I mean, like I said, if I was racing and racing was my main goal, then obviously bigger, farther reach would allow me to kind of have more stability because it would allow me to get a bigger bike, size medium, which would be a longer wheelbase. I could fly faster down hills. That's not my goal. I do enjoy doing that, but that's not my goal. So for me, I enjoy the shorter reach so that I can have more play and more pop with my bikes. So that Hawk Hill was fantastic. Shimano SLX brakes. Overall, a really, really good bike. Luckily, because it was COVID, I was able to sell that bike. I rode it for about 6 months, 8 months. Rode it in Sycamore, rode it in Greer, and had a great time on that bike, and ended up selling it. I was able to sell it for almost the exact price I got it. Obviously, I spruced it up a little bit with so I sold the bike, obviously including all the costs. I got my money back for that bike. Next, I was like, you know what? I like the idea of enduro racing. I like the idea of having an enduro bike, being able to fly down hills and still have fun on my local trails. So I was like, you know what, an enduro bike is what I'm looking for, because then I can, if I ever want to race it one day, I can do that. Or if I ever want to just bomb down hills, I can do that, but still have fun because it is a full suspension bike. So I did buy the New Proof Giga, which was considered a super enduro bike. 180 front and rear, Zep Ultimate. It was the R, so it was the bottom line one. It was Zep Ultimate in the front, Super Deluxe in the rear. 180, 180, Shimano Dior brakes and shifters. So bottom line, it was their basic starter package. It was like $2,700. So I sold my bike and what was it, like $3,200, and I paid a little extra. It was from Europe at the time, so it was a pain in the butt to get. The bike showed up. It was phenomenal. It was a monster. But something that I didn't know, it really toned down my local trails. My local trails being Sycamore. It's a lot of riding. There's a lot of features there and a lot of fun you could have, a lot of variation, but you'd have to ride to these certain points and then session these points. Like, there's no bombing down hills really at Sycamore. It's more Greer. And so I did Hood of the Crooks with that one. I did Sycamore with that one. And in my local trails, which I ride 90% of the time, it really kind of tamped down everything because it had so much suspension. 181 in the front and rear was a lot. And so it kind of took the fun away from it. Obviously, it was a longer wheelbase, further reach. So I was kind of stretching what I like to do, which is having the bars close to me. And a main point that made me end up selling the bike was my dropper post, the insertion. Oh my goodness, let me just do insertion. Maybe another one. Insertion. The depth that the dropper post had to be inserted was like this much. I'll show you if you guys want to go back. I'll link the videos in the description. But honestly, like the furthest that dropper post would go would be like this. And so when I extend the dropper post up at full capacity, it wouldn't be an ideal position. I'd be on my tippy toes. I'd be overstretched. It wasn't comfortable. When I would drop the dropper all the way down, it would only go down this far. And then obviously it was in the way of me trying to maneuver around the bike, which defeated the purpose of having a size small bike. Also, like I said, it had a further reach and a bigger wheelbase. That thing was like 1205, where my other bike was like 1180. So I definitely felt it. And going downhill, I was super confident. I can close my eyes, aim it down a hill, and know that I'll make it down just fine because it was a monster. But like I said, I wasn't really into racing, so I didn't have the fun and the thrill that I really wanted with that bike. It was too much bike for me, which is hard for me to admit. I don't like to say I was over bike, but that bike for me in my areas that I ride, it wasn't shining. So I was able to sell that bike, same thing, for the exact price I got it. I had a couple crashes on it, nothing crazy. I did put a bash guard on, and of course I spruced it up just a tad bit, made it my own, and I sold that bike for the exact price that I got it for. So with that money, I went to the Santa Cruz Bronson. This was an all-mountain bike, phenomenal bike. It was the R, so it was the bottom line one. It was the beginner one, essentially. SRAM Code R brakes. It was 160, 150. It was a Lyric in the front and a Super Deluxe. It was a Rock Shocks. I don't even remember anymore. It was a Fox. They like to do Rock Shocks in the front and then Fox in the rear. It was cool. So it was the R kit, which was at the time was $5,100, and then even went to $5,300, and now they're got down to like $4,800. So I got this guy at like the heat of COVID, where it was really hard. I went to the Path Bike Shop, fantastic bike shop out in Tustin. As soon as I got on the bike, I knew exactly this is what I was missing. The all-mountain bike is what I needed, what I wanted. It had more travel than a trail bike, so I was able to pop and play every single thing, but I could, and I did, do an enduro race on it, and I did not feel overwhelmed like my bike couldn't keep up. The 160 and 150 in the rear really made it where it was just enough travel. But to be honest, I am a little bougie, and I did buy the Cascade link. Like I said, I'll link all the videos in the description. The Cascade link allowed me to extend the rear suspension to 160 or 170 or 180 in the LT with a bigger shock. So I did put it in the LT setting, which is a long travel setting. It allowed me to do 170 in the rear, where it came naturally stock at 150. And I did over fork this guy and put a 170 where it came stock at 160. I went with the Zeb Ultimate because at the time they had just released the Zeb Ultimate, the newer edition. So this thing was like 40% off. I could not pass that up. 40% off? Ha! I love me a deal. So yeah, I got the Zeb Ultimate in the front, as you can see. The deal was still going on when I got the Specialized, so Zeb Ultimate in the front as well. And then I was like, you know what? I want to give a coil shock a try. I have never had a coil shock. I like the idea in theory of a coil shock having that more supple feeling, that better traction control, which I could use every ounce of traction that I can get. So I ended up getting the Fox DHX2, the top of the line Fox, with a progressive coil, which I did a bunch of research seeing that it was almost the better of the two worlds, because when you get closer to, I guess, the coil ending, the coils are a little closer together, so it's actually harder to compress, so it almost has an air-like feeling in the end. So you have normal size coils here, 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 and then you see it's compressed, not even a finger can get in between. That means when you're getting close to bottom out, it's actually going to be harder to compress, given that more air-like feeling. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I loved the coil shock. I love the planted feeling of it. But I did feel the weight of it, and I did feel that obviously in jumps, because it doesn't have, the more you give to it, the more it gives back, like air shock would. It doesn't matter how much you do, as long as you compress it to that certain amount, it's going to compress and rebound the exact same. It doesn't, you press it harder and it's going to come back harder. It doesn't have that. I mean, the rebound, the shock itself has that, but the coil does not. So the bike was phenomenal. I made it the Santa Cruz Bromad. At the time, there was no such thing as the Nomad, or at least a new rendition of the Nomad. So I made this the first generation Nomad for the mullet. So like I said, now this is in the mullet configuration, a 29 and a 27.5. So for someone like me who's on the shorter end, it was the best of both worlds. Like I said, 29er front and rear, everyone always talks about what's faster, a mullet or a 29er. Full 29ers are always going to be faster. They have bigger rolling speed, they can roll over things, and once you get up to momentum, you have that rolling speed that's very capable. Where the 27.5 tire obviously doesn't have the bigger roller speed, it can get caught up on things. But being that I'm on the shorter side, a little bit, not too much, on the shorter side, I enjoy having that smaller rear tire where I can pop and play, lean back on the bike, and have a little bit extra clearance. So to me, it's either between 27.5 front and rear or the mullet, and I'll take the mullet all day. I enjoy the mullet. I think it's fun. It's playful. I do feel the bigger tire in the front is able to run over things a little bit better, and it doesn't get cut off as much. I love the bike. It was fantastic. But I do have 2 kids now, and time is of a very limited factor for me. I don't get to go out and ride for hours on end. And if I do ride, it's usually about an hour. So I would go ride, obviously. I would love to go and ride Greer. I would love to go ride Hoodlip, but in my mind, I was like, if I only get an hour and a half to ride, it takes 30 minutes for me to get to Hoodlip Crooks, where it only takes me 15 minutes to get to Sycamore. So I found myself going to Sycamore because of the convenience. My cardiovascular endurance has never been great. I lift really heavy weight one time, put it back down, take about 45-minute rest. Exaggerating, but that's the style of lifting that I do. So when I would go on the jump lines and do all the stuff at Sycamore, I had a great time, but I was always out of breath and I was always missing out. Like, man, I want to explore, but I can't afford that risk of time right now because I just want to have fun. I had a Harley Iron 883. I don't know, you guys, like I said, you guys go back in my videos and see it. It was phenomenal. Oh, I love that bike. My wife hated it. I love the bike. It was phenomenal. But at the time, I said, it's probably better if I sell the bike, safer, better for the family. And with that money, I could use to buy an e-bike, which I can use to take my sons on a ride. My boys, well, only one of my boys, the other one's too young, 7 months. I can take my boy on a ride on the shotgun seat, because when you go on the shotgun seat here, you feel the weight, it's heavier, and when you're climbing, my boy gets a little bored because I'm obviously not climbing very fast, and he starts to get kind of antsy and moving around the cockpit. Not very fun. E-bike, on the other hand, I'm going up as fast as I'm going down, so he's just holding on, which is great for me. So yeah, I found myself loving this bike. I love the all-mountain bike. Technically I didn't need to do the 170. I had fun at 160. I just did it just because I wanted to. I honestly thought it was cool, the idea of being a bromad. Then they came out with the Nomad in the 170 in a mullet. So it's a Santa Cruz Bronson, almost Nomad, bromad. I like it. I love the bike. I love the warranty. I love Santa Cruz. I am probably going to look to sell it only because, like I said, time is of an essence with me. I don't really get to ride the bike that much because if I get an hour, I'm going to pick this guy because in an hour I can do 3 times as many laps as I can with that. Or if I want to explore, I can explore a lot more with this than I can with that. So I sold the Harley, looked at a bunch of bikes. At the very end, it was between the YT Decoy, it was the Uncaged Edition, which was a fantastic bang for your buck. Olin suspension, top of the line XT brakes, great bike. Or the Specialized, because the Lone Wolf, he did a review, e-bike e-bike showdown for the year last year, 2022. And when the guys rode this bike, they said nothing but fantastic things about this. They said that they can't get enough of it. Just no matter what they did to it, it just felt like it was ready for more. That already sold me. And the fact that they said that the bike felt agile, playful, fun, everything, all the key words that I was looking to hear. And so I really did want the Specialized, but being that it was exact same price as YT and being that I'm a cheap kind of guy, I wanted the best bang for your buck. Specialized is a fantastic bike, great great company, not known for a great bang for your buck. Like that, this bike was $7,500 with bottom end suspension, bottom end brakes and shifters, the NX, where the other one gets XT, Olins, and everything. So I was really gonna go with the Uncaged. I really like lifetime warranties. I'm a big sucker for them. So that's why I did want to go Specialized. Another reason I wanted to go with Specialized. Then something happened. A miracle. A shooting star came from the sky. And I said, dear shooting star, please let them have a discount on my Specialized. Just magically one day I looked, 25% off. Bought it that day. Sold my Harley. Bought that bike. Should have probably put some of that money back to the Harley loan that I had, but instead I bought stuff for the bike. My mentality was, the money that I saved with this bike, I can spruce it up even better and a little bit cheaper than the YT Uncaged. So that's when I went with the Zeb Ultimate in the front. Fantastic. It is, like I said, the original generation, but it's fantastic. I bought this guy from a pin bike dude online. I don't know where he lives, whatever he was. Got this shock, the Foxwood X2, for a great deal. Pimped out the bike with Stamp 2 cranks by Crank Brothers. I got the Yoshimaro stem? Bar holder? Why am I not? I'm drawing a blank. Stem. I got Wolf Tooth. I'll show you guys in the video. I'll cut to a video right now of everything that I have on the bike. But Ergon grips and Trail 1 valves, and it's a fantastic bike. I went with the 220 rotor in the front, and I went with 1-up carbon bars. Fantastic. I definitely feel the difference immediately, because I do ride with my boy in the front with me, and obviously there's a lot of braking I gotta do because I can't go very fast with him, and my arms would get fatigued pretty quick getting through some chunky stuff, always having to be on the brakes. My arms would get fatigued. I feel immediately, like instantly, I felt the difference on the carbon. I felt like a huge reduction in vibration from the bar, which is pretty crazy to me, honestly. Like the amount of reduction I felt in like chatter was mind-blowing. I did cut the bars to 770. They came stock at 780. I cut those to 780 as well. So I was pretty comfortable with 780, but 770 almost is, I think to me, is perfect. It gives me everything I want. It has a shorter reach, and oh, let me go back. So I bought the Specialized Comp Alloy Edition. I really wanted to get the carbon because I'm bougie, but with that 25% off, like I said, I could spruce the bike up really, really nice and make it comparable to the YT Decoy. So in my mind, I figured that was great. Even though the Specialized Carbon 25% off was the same price as the YT Decoy, I still had the bottom line stuff. So I was like, I'd rather get the alloy, spruce it up. So I did, and I do not regret it one bit. It is freaking-tastic, because kids watch this, so not the F word. Freaking-tastic. And this is water, by the way, for kids listening. For adults, it's not water. Adult water. All right, so I went with the Specialized Alloy Comp. And like I said, I don't regret it one bit. It is a fantastic bike. The emission control app is super easy to use. It's really, really intuitive, and you can do so many adjustments. The acceleration assist you can do. I had that turned down for a long time because obviously I was worried about what if I get stuck on a hill. I tried pedaling and I have too much response on the acceleration assist, and I just end up burning out or losing traction. I just turned that up recently because I haven't had that problem. I have had the problem of stopping halfway up on a hill for some reason or the other and having to get back on the bike, and because I don't have the response turned up, getting on the pedals, I had to pedal hard and the response wasn't really there. I cranked that bad boy up. Now as soon as I get up on the hill, if it's a steep incline, I can get on the saddle real quick, give it a little bit of power, and the response is there, and I can climb up the hill no problem. The motor is super quiet. I don't hear chatter. I don't hear, I know with the Shimano or the Shimano EP8 motor, there's a lot of clinking and clunking, and there's a rattle. That's a very known thing. This, on the other hand, is very, very quiet. When you downshift almost to the bottom gears, the easy climbing gears, to go up a really big hill, obviously you hear the motor going and kicking in, but that is the only time I hear the motor. I don't hear anything on this bike when I'm riding in normal, like a regular condition. When I'm doing big climbs, I hear the motor. It doesn't bother me. It's just like a you know, it's an e-bike. It doesn't bother me at all. The battery is a 700 watt-hour battery. I only ride this thing in turbo. I know I should probably ride this thing in like eco or trail mode. Excuse me, for like cardiovascular health and probably not drink beer, but whatever, you know. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, and so when I go for a ride and I only got an hour, I'm going in boost and or turbo, is when that's turbo. I'm going in turbo and I'm flying and I'm hitting as many runs as I can. And let's talk about the Specialized bike. It is fan-freaking-tastic. It feels very, very, very centered. When I ride this bike, like I said, I'll link all the videos in the description. It feels exactly like my Santa Cruz. When I start pedaling on it and I start doing jumps and whipping around corners and just riding the bike, I wouldn't even know it's an e-bike. Like, it is quiet and powerful and fun and poppy and very, very centered. With this bike, with the Cascade Link and the coil shock, it is rear heavy. If I'm not paying attention when I do jumps, if you watched my last video when I crashed, it has a very, very easy tendency of dead sailing, which I'm already good at to begin with. And now you're telling me a rear end is much, much heavier. I have to counteract that, always mentally know that if not, I'm definitely going to dead sail. And if it's a huge jump like the last crash I did, I'm going to get hurt. This bike, on the other hand, is very, very centered. The motor is down here. I like the way that it doesn't look like an e-bike. I mean, I guess here it kind of does. But overall, it doesn't get that e-bike look like the Intense Taser, Laser, whatever. That thing looks ugly. It is terrible. I don't know who designed that. Fix your bike. And I like you guys because you guys are from California, I think. But yeah, you got a new design too. It's terrible, ugly looking bike. Sorry for everybody that has that bike. It's okay looking. I love this bike. I love the 700 watt-hour battery. On turbo mode, I've gone like 2-3 hour rides and drained just a couple bars. I've never come close to draining the battery all the way. The Cord R brakes are so naturally. This thing came stock with the Fox float, not the Fox float, the Fox. That guy right there, the Fox Evil, the Fox Float X, not the Float X2. And it was fantastic. It was great. I shouldn't have changed it. I didn't need to change it. I was bougie and I changed it. I don't know why. This is, I mean, it just looks cool. The Kashima coating is cool, but honestly, that thing was fantastic. I didn't need to change anything. It came with the Fox 36 in the front. I did want to go to a 38 just because it is an e-bike. I do ride a little more aggressive because I'm not that great of a rider and I'm willing to take risks, so I do beat up the bike. So having that 38 that stanchions is much more comfortable for me. So I'm a big fan of Zeb. I don't really like all the dials and things, so Zeb Ultimate for me was the way to go. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that rides and notices every little thing or want to actually do a lot of adjustments. Hence why I really like the coil shock. I don't gotta add air. It is what it is. It's the coil shock. I'm not very good at adding air or making adjustments or feeling like my rebound is too high or too low. My compression is, I don't know. I'm not very good at that. So realistically, I probably should have stayed with the stock shock, but you know, bougie, I guess. So stock, this bike was phenomenal. Code R brakes, which are good. You know, for the kind of riding that we're doing, obviously I honestly think they're okay for an e-bike. I feel like e-bikes should have, I don't know, at least like the one above Code R's. Obviously the RCs are much more expensive, but I just feel like they're good, but they could have much better stopping power. So a cheat code that I did was add a 220 rotor on the front. And that did great. That definitely, I felt a difference in stopping power. Like, it is much more improvement. So for you guys that have brakes, don't have the money to replace them, buy a new rotor, bigger rotor. If you have a 180, go to 200. If you have 200, go to 220. If you have 180, go to 220. Who cares? You just have to buy a bigger adapter. If you go from 180 to 220, you have to buy a 40 millimeter adapter instead of a 20. Nevertheless, bought a bigger adapter for my rotor. I would like to go the rear 220 now just because it is fantastic. I feel the difference in stopping power without having to upgrade the entire brakes because that can get very, very, very costly. The rotor itself is like 50, 60 bucks. It's a huge improvement for the price. Carbon bars, again, a huge improvement. I think this is the 1UP e-bike specific one, I think it was just a little bit more stiff, a little bit more compliant. It was a little different than their stock e-bike or their stock carbon bars. But I know with the Shimano one, you can hide the remote or whatever, but I honestly got it just because it was e-bike. It was meant for e-bike, so why not get it for it? Let's circle back around. I've been drinking a couple beers, so this video has gone longer than it was supposed to. What bike is for you? So, if you enjoy, if you're just getting into the sport, I highly recommend going with a budget hardtail. It gets you the idea of what mountain biking is, and it gives you a view of a summary, a feeling of what mountain biking can be for you. If you're out there and you're hitting every minute of it, getting a suspension bike will make it better, but it's not going to be all that great. Like, I loved being on that piece of crap hardtail, that budget hardtail. I loved being out there. I loved the thrills of like braking and going fast and going over chunky stuff and being outdoors. I love that. So if you're having a terrible time on a budget bike, getting a full suspension or e-bike, yeah, it's going to make it better, but you're not going to have that great time and you're probably not going to stick with the sport. So getting a budget bike is ideal. You can ask them on Facebook Marketplace, offer up, whatever the case may be. They're always on sale. People are always selling their bikes because they're doing that same thing. They're trying it out for a minimal risk, finding out they love it, and then upgrading it. So I highly recommend, if you guys don't have a bike and you guys want to get into sport of mountain biking, start small, see if it's for you. It may not be for you. You may like the idea of it. As soon as you get on the bike, you may hate everything about it. You may hate avoiding rattlesnakes or seeing coyotes or being in the sun or having dirt in your face. I like all that stuff. It doesn't bother me at all. Secondly, what should you choose? An all-mountain, a trail, a downhill, or an e-bike, or whatever the case may be. If you're on the younger side and time is not of an essence for you, definitely an e-bike is not necessary. They're far more expensive. You can get a top-of-the-line regular bike for the price of a bottom-line e-bike. And I think you would definitely have more benefit and more fun being on the top of the line regular bike. So even if you're a dad, even if you're younger, if time isn't really, really crucial for you, then I would highly recommend going with a non-e-bike because you can spend the time and have the benefit of having cardiovascular health. So definitely go with a non-e-bike. Now, should you go with a hardtail, trail bike, enduro bike, downhill bike? Downhill bike, out of the question. Unless you have the money to do multiple bikes, a downhill bike is not for you. A downhill bike is only for bike park days. You're not going to be pedaling that thing around anywhere. Maybe if you have shuttle days, but I would highly recommend you have a bike that is far more versatile, which everything below downhill bike is. So a downhill bike is not for you unless you want to have multiple bikes. Then get a downhill bike. They're freaking cool, awesome looking, and I love them. But now we're going back to, so hardtail, all mountain, trail bike. That was out of order. That was terrible. Hardtail, all trail, a trail bike, all mountain, and enduro bike. There are 4 bikes left in this category of what you should choose. So now the next question is, what are you going to be riding primarily? Are your local trails what you're going to be riding 90% of the time? If that's what they are, then what are your local trails like? For me, I live in Riverside. Sycamore is my local trails. A trail bike and or a hardtail is more than capable to do anything, honestly, here locally in Riverside, even Greer or Hoodlip Crooks or anything like that. I mean, when you start getting into Vale Lake, they do have enduro-like races, so you may feel a little overwhelmed on a hardtail, and even a trail bike you have to choose your lines more wisely, but they can still do it. So, depending on where you are and the type of trails you're going to be riding. Now, if you're like, I travel a lot, I go all around the places, an all-mountain bike or an enduro bike is perfect for you because an all-mountain bike is capable to do anything, just a little bit better of a climber. Well, on the other hand, if you're like, hey, I might do shuttle days sometimes, get an enduro bike because an enduro bike can do every absolute thing. Every enduro race, you have to climb the course yourself, so they have to be able to climb. They are a little heavier, but they have to be able to climb and they can descend like monsters. So if there's times where you may even do shuttle days, I would go with an enduro bike. Usually I think they're 160 in the rear and up. That classifies that as an enduro bike. So if you're going to go riding your local trails, but a lot of the times you're going to go other places, you're going to have shuttle days, go enduro bike. That is for you because your primary focus is to have fun no matter where you go. Have the Uno card, the what do you call those? have the Uno card, have the multi-tool of bikes, the enduro bike is for you if you're having shuttle days in there. If you're never going to do a shuttle day and your most of your days are going to local other trails and having fun and exploring, an all-mountain bike might be a little bit better because it is a much, much better climber. And it is still capable to do anything that an enduro bike can do. Obviously, you have to choose your lines just a little bit more wisely because they usually have 140 or 150 in the rear. So your travel is a little bit limited. They usually have 150, 160 up front. So they definitely still have enough travel to get down anything you throw at them. Just have to choose your lines a little more wisely. Like, you really can't make as many mistakes continuously. Like, where an enduro bike, you have a lot more suspension travel. If you make a bad mistake, it compresses the shock. You make another bad mistake, you have a little bit more room to grow. This can, obviously it's going to come up on you closer. So an all-mountain bike is great for if you're exploring, if time is not an essence, and you're never really going to do shuttle days. All-mountain bike is for you because it's a much, much better climber. It's a little bit lighter, and that's what it kind of focuses on, being able to do everything. Jack of all trades. A trail bike is, if your local trails 90% of the time are cross-country or poppy, jumpy, fun, jib, and you really focus on, like, my favorite kind of riding is just having fun. I don't give a darn about going fast. I just want to have fun. I want to be able to make every little jump a hip. I want to be able to wheelie and pop and play and do all this stuff. The trail bike is for you because it has a lot lower suspension, usually 140 and below. And with that, you're able to compress the shock a lot easier and do a lot more pop and playful. The bike is a lot lighter because it's less beefy of a fork, usually like a 34-inch stanchion to 35. So the forks are already less heavy to begin with. And they still are super capable. They can still do enduro tracks. You just have to choose your lines a little more wisely, obviously, because like I said before, if you pick a bad line, you compress the shock, and you pick another bad line, you're at your limit, or you'll be close to your limit, and you'll feel like, oh man, I got no more room to grow, and now it's going to be rough on you. But nevertheless, you can still have fun on a trail bike on an enduro track. It actually might be more fun because it'll be more difficult, and you'll have to choose your lines more wisely, so it'll actually be like more of a challenge. And if you like those kind of things, a trail bike is more than capable to do anything. You can take a trail bike to a bike park and have a great time. Like, it doesn't limit you at all, just a lot less forgiving. That's the factor between the all-mountain bike, the trail bike, the enduro bike. What is more forgiving for you? A downhill bike is very, very forgiving because the suspension travels like 200 millimeters, so 200 millimeters of travel. So you have a lot more forgiveness if you pick a bad line, if you take a hard hit, or you case a jump. You have a lot more room to go, where if you case a jump on a trail bike, you're going to know it and you're going to feel it because that suspension is going to come up real quick. Hardtails, on the other hand, are fantastic for cross-country. And if you're one of those badass people that can just be like, anything you can do, I can do better. No, you can, yes, I can. Yeah, if you're one of those people, do a hardtail. They're fun. They're capable to do anything. I would definitely do clipless, even though that means clipped in, because obviously you don't have the rear suspension, so when you get hit bumpy and rocky stuff, it's better to have your feet clipped into the pedals. But I see people do anything on trail bikes. Like, I know a couple of YouTubers have done it. What's that dude's name? He's from Canada. I'll link it in the description. Van Cam, that's his name. I know Van Cam. He does like double black diamond up in Canada. There's crazy trails, and he's done it on hardtails, or he's done it with people on hardtails. You can do anything on a hardtail that you can do on any other bike, but that one you really, 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 really have to choose your line choice as well, because if you take a bad line and there's no suspension to help ease that bad line choice, you're gonna feel it in your legs and it's gonna hurt, and it can cause a crash, and that can lead to obviously less time on the bike and pain. So that is what I would. Obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm not a bike guy. I'm not a mechanic. I actually usually mess up the bikes more than I actually help them when I try to work on them. But being that I had started on a budget hardtail and moved up to a very, very nice all-mountain bike, I spruced it up nice, to an e-bike, I've had a taste of every category, and I've got to really learn the pros and cons of each. And so, for me, I do majority of sycamore, and I do go from trail to trail, but I really don't ever shuttle, hence why I really, really like the all-mountain bike. Yeah, I did make it a 170, but I did get the locking rear. It still has that fun and playful. It still has the attributes of an all-mountain bike, just a little bit more travel. So I do feel a little bit more weight, but it still climbs fan-freaking-tastic. Or e-bike. If time is of the essence for you, get an e-bike, because they are as capable as any bike that is not e-bike compatible, or that is not an e-bike. They're just as playful, just as fun, just as fast. They're amazing. They have come leaps and bounds of what they used to be, and there are honestly mind-blowing how fantastic they are. I had a friend named D who I got into mountain biking. Obviously, I couldn't sell him on an e-bike because to say like, hey D, like you'll love the sport, pay $7,000 and you're gonna get a great bike. No, that's impossible. I can't. I'm a good salesman, but I can't be that good to tell somebody on a $7,000 investment on something they haven't really done.
1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door.
So he went with the YT Capra. It's a great bike. He loved it. He fell in love with the sport just like I did. What I messed up on, I was like, hey D, ride my e-bike. Look how amazing it is. He took 2 pedals in. He's like, this is it for me. This is what I want. This is it. Because it felt just as light, just as agile, just as fun as his regular Capra, but with no effort at all. So now when we go to Sky Park, and you have those dudes getting, oh yeah, this is my 18th lap, and me and him are walking our bikes up on our 2nd lap because we're out of breath. We're those people now. We're those people saying, ha ha, we're having a great time.
Hey, look at us. Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
This is lap 18, and we're 2 beers in. Or no beers in, depending on who's watching the video. So, there you go. If you guys have any questions at all, please leave them in the comment description or the comment box. I do read them all. I do reply to them all. And as always, have a bad day. See you guys.